Hey guys, hope you all are doing great. And today we are going to take a very important scenario-based ETL testing interview question. Okay, and the solution that we are going to implement is using the automation script. Okay, because for this kind of scenario-based question, it is impossible to basically do the proper data validation using the manual testing. Okay, and that is the reason it is very good way also to understand what is the power of the automation or ETL automation testing, right? And this is, you will realize after understanding this entire thing. Okay, so this video is going to be a little longer, so be patient and try to understand everything. And this is I'm sure that this is something that you might not have basically seen this kind of scenario that I'm going to explain in this video. All right, so let's try to understand first requirement and then also the test scenarios, and then we will actually proceed one by one. Okay, and I'm sure that if you're watching this video completely at the end, until the end, then you will be able to understand basically what I'm talking about. Okay, let's understand. Okay, so this is basically ETL transformation requirement. It says that suppose we are having a retail system where transaction data is captured at transaction level, and we would need to process the data in data warehouse at customer level aggregated data. What it means is basically it says that we have some data which is there, let's say in some flat file, okay, which is the transaction data, which is basically on the transaction level. Okay, but when I want to load this data into my warehouse, I want the data on the aggregated level. Okay, so I will come back to that, basically what is aggregated level and what is the level that we are talking about. But this is basically, it says that we need to transform the data and load the data into aggregated form, right? Which means on the summary level data. Okay, now let's try to see what is the test scenario it is saying. It says that given the data, given the size of the data in the source system is 20 GB. Okay, so it says that the data that we are getting in the transaction data, which is in my flat file, that is actually 20 gigabyte of data, which is very huge amount of data, right? Now you can understand. Now how do you test if aggregated data per customer in summary table is transformed correctly, right? So you can understand like 20 GB of data, and then you need to basically ensure entire data that is actually loaded in my summary table is correctly transformed and loaded or not, right? And this is, as I said, it is very impossible thing to basically do the manual testing, right? It is not possible at all. Okay, that is where we are going to use the automation testing here, right? Let's try to understand the problem a little bit more detail. Okay, requirement and then problem here, and then we will go with the solution. Okay, okay, now you can see this is my data. Okay, now I have, for the simplicity, I have taken only around 30 records basically, and this is the data which is actually transaction data.xls. So this is basically data which is there in the Excel sheet. Okay, and you can see clearly here that this data is basically transaction level data. Transaction 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something up to 31. Basically, we have 31 transactions or 30 transactions basically. Okay, now the customer data, you can see the each of these transactions. So each of these customers, for example, customer one, up to this, actually you can see all of them are actually customer one, right? Which means that this particular customer has done multiple transactions, right? And this transactions is also showing about what is the amount, what is the transaction type, purchase, and then payment method, etc. All these details. What I need to do as part of my testing is that this is my data. Okay, for customer 1 this data, for customer 2 this is the data. What I want is, I want the aggregated sum of total amount, aggregated sum of total amount, which means for customer number 1 this is basically total. Okay, this is for, this is total. So all this column which is the value for in the total amount column, this should be aggregated, means this should be added. I want the sum of all the transactions for customer 1 simply, and then for similarly for customer 2 I want all the sum of the total amount. Basically I just need to sum it. Okay, so this is my requirement. Okay, and then I want to make sure that whatever I am getting from the source, given this data is only 30 records, but in as I said, it's a 20 GB of data, which is huge actually. Now I want to basically compare whether whatever data I'm getting from the source is exactly aggregated as in target, right? And in my target, what I want to do, basically I want to load the data customer ID and my target is having customer ID and the aggregated data, right? For customer ID, for example, if I can just maybe if I can just show you a little bit about this data, I think you will see it. So this is my data actually. Let me show you quickly, then it will make more sense actually. Okay. So let's give a minute before it opens. Okay, so it is open. Now you see for this customer one, right? This is the customer one data. Now what I want is I want basically all this. So this is basically how much it is 775.5. So for C1 I should be getting 775. For similarly for C2, right? C2, this is the data for C2, isn't it? Okay, up to this, right? So this is actually 530, right? So I should be actually in my target I should be getting customer ID and total amount. That's it. So I should be ideally there are 6 customers. So for 6 rows I should be getting, and then this column should be aggregated for C1. This should be basically the amount, and then for C2 this should be amount, and so similarly for C3 and all. So ideally I should be getting only 6 record in my target, but it should be actually aggregated, and this is what the testing is basically. Okay. Now let's go back to presentation. Look at it. This is my source data. Now I'll show you my target basically. So my target is basically data warehouse, and here as I said it is basically summary level data. Exactly, you can see, right? So this is what I want. Actually I want the customer ID and total amount basically, which is aggregated for each of this customer basically, right? Grouped data, group by, that's what we do it, right, in SQL. So this is what I want. Now I want to basically compare whatever this aggregation has been done, it is done correctly or not, right? This is what my requirement as part of my testing basically. See, given the size, how do you test if aggregated data per customer in the summary table is correctly transformed correctly, right? This is what exactly I need to test it. Okay. Now hopefully this is making sense, guys. Okay, now let's try to understand what is my solution approach. As we can see that this is impossible to do manual test with manual testing. I mean, you can do some sampling and you can do some data testing like few records and all those kind of things, but it is impossible to do with 20 GB of data. Now let's look at that, how we can actually ensure every record, right, that is there in my target is actually correctly transformed or not using automated way. Okay, so let's try to understand the approach. Okay, so this is my solution approach, guys. Okay, so let's try to look at the solution approach. It says that extract, the solution approach says that extract the data from source. Okay, what is my source? Source is basically that that Excel sheet that I have shown, right? 30 records basically in our case, for example. So we will actually extract the data from the source using the pandas data frame, and we will store into df underscore source. This is my data source. That's where I'm going to store it, and then after that I will basically run some transformation. Okay, I will transform the data which is there in df underscore source based on the business requirement. So business requirement says you have to aggregate the data. So then once I aggregate this data, I will just store into df another data frame which is aggregated. Okay, so this is the name of the data frame that we will be using, exactly the same thing. Now third step says that I will actually extract the data from my target, and that target is basically database, right, which is MySQL database. I'll extract the data from there and store the data into df underscore tgt. This is my another data frame. Now what I will do at the fourth step, I will just compare this particular data because this is my aggregated data, isn't it? And this ideally should be second step and third step should be exactly having the same data. If I can compare aggregated data, basically compare, it should be df underscore aggregated, yeah, aggregated and df underscore target. If both are same, then I will say my test is pass. Otherwise I will say there is some error. Okay, this is what exactly. So hopefully this approach is clear to you. Okay, let's look at basically, let's try to do one thing. Let's try to code this in PyCharm. Okay, and then you can actually make sense completely. Okay, let's go here, and this is my data actually. Okay, which is there in my Excel, this data probably, yeah, you can see this one, right? Now what I will do, I will write actually one test script. Okay, I'll just go here, I'll try to write one test script. I'll say test underscore underscore uh, aggregated test aggregated customer. I'll say customer label date check. That's it. Okay, this is my file. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to use few basically import functions that I will be needing to import the data and then do the testing. So I'll quickly do that. Import pandas hpd, and then I will also import one more library which is pytest, that is for our testing purpose. I'll say import pytest, and then I will also import one more thing to connect your database. So SQL Alchemy, and I'll say import create engine. All right. All right. Now what I will do, I will just create a connection actually, because I have to read the data. Okay, this pandas is not right. Okay, this is right. Now to basically fetch the data, I'll show you the data in my target. So this is that source I have shown in, right? This is the source, and which is there actually in this particular place or already in my project itself. So I can simply actually extract it from here. But for my target, it is there in my database. So this is the table where I have the data. If I run it, so this is the exactly aggregated data that I'm talking, right? And now I have to compare this aggregated data with Excel data, and after taking this I will be actually doing the transformation and then I'll compare it. Okay, now let's try to do one thing. To read this data, I just need to basically create a connection, and to that I have just written some connection. I will not type it actually, I'll just copy paste this detail. Okay, this is actually to create a MySQL connection basically. Okay, let's go there. I'll just do it. All right, perfect. Now what I will do is I will actually write a test. Okay, the test is, I'll say test underscore maybe aggregated summary level. Okay, that's it. You can give any name of the test that is meaningful basically. Okay, I'll just write this. Okay, now what I will say, as I said, I will be actually as part of my step, isn't it? Let's go back and see the steps basically. As part of my step, I'm saying that I will be extracting the data from the source, okay, and I'll store into df src. All right, so let's try to basically write this, and then I will convert this data as a aggregated also, then only I'll compare, right? So let's try to do step number one. Okay, step by step we will actually proceed. Okay, I'll say here step number one basically, extract data from file. All right, let's try to okay, this should be actually okay, this is perfect. Let me extract this data. Okay, hopefully this will 1 second guys. Okay, this is all good. Summary, I think I should be writing M. Okay, this is fine. Let's try to do, I'll say df underscore src, and then here what I will do, I will say pd dot read underscore excel, right? Excel, isn't it? This is what I need to read, and I need to give the exact name of the file basically. So what is that exact name of the file? Transaction data dot xlsx. Okay, this is the exact name, and why it is actually okay, I have to say edge. Now this should be okay, and why this is giving error by the way, I don't know. Okay, we'll see that. Okay, now this is my exactly the data that I have actually got it from the raw data, right, from this one. Now I will just convert into aggregated data frame because I need to compare the aggregated, no? So I'll just need to compare the aggregated. So I'll say date tf underscore aggregated. Okay, and is that the same thing? I have it. Okay, df aggregated, right? Okay, now what I will do, I'll just say df underscore src. Okay, and then I will say group by, guys. Okay, group by, and here I'm going to say group by based on what? Customer ID, right? Because here you can see we have the customer ID. So I will just copy it maybe here and just paste it here basically. Okay, okay, perfect. Customer ID, and I will basically group by on this, but I will add, I will say total amount. Actually, this is the column. If you can see it here, I guess it is total amount. Yeah. So I want to aggregate for put aggregator on the total amount. Okay. But group by customer ID. Okay. And then I'll say what kind of aggregation? I just want to sum the data, isn't it? Total amount should be summed, and I'll say reset index. All right. Alright guys, so this is the thing. I have got the aggregated data. Now second step, what I'm going to do, I'm going to just read the data from the MySQL as well, right? So to read the data from MySQL, I'll be using this particular connection, and to do read this data, let me try to write df underscore tgt, right? This is what the target data frame actually. I'll say pd dot read underscore SQL, correct? And then I will just write the query actually. Same query, probably I'll copy paste it here. This is the query. Let me just take it, put it here. Where exactly is this one? Okay, this is the one. Perfect. And then what I'm going to say, I'm just going to pass my MySQL engine. Okay, MySQL engine. Perfect. Why it is giving me error? Okay, this is not error actually. Okay, this is fine. But guys, this is a problem here. You know why? Because this, if you look at it, this thing should be actually indented. The indentation is not there. So let me indent it. See, the error is gone basically. Okay, now as I got it, as I said, this is the first step. Second step, I think this is the second step. Let me write it actually. Okay, this is second step, and this says transform data to aggregated label. Okay, now this third step is basically what it is telling is, third step is saying extract the data from target. Okay, this is my MySQL basically. Okay, fourth step, let's go back and see that. Fourth step says that compare aggregated data and flag if there is any error. Okay, simple thing. So let's go back here, and I'll say fourth step is compare both the data frames. Okay, from second and third step, isn't it? This is my fourth step actually. This is all done guys, great. Let's try to basically do this part as well. Okay, now I have to write obviously here, and then I will say that assert df underscore aggregated, or df underscore target maybe. Okay, doesn't matter really. Okay, is equals, I'm just comparing whether both are equals or not, right? I'll say df aggregated, aggregated. Why it's not coming? Okay, is there any problem? Let's try to put it here probably. This is fine now. If both are fine, actually matching, then fine. Otherwise, I'll say my test failed. Okay, this is the simple thing I'm going to say. That's it guys. They are all the four steps that I need to do. Okay, now let's try to basically run this particular test. Okay, where it is, let's try to run this particular test. Okay, let me run it. How do I run it? Basically, I have to say pytest, and then I will just say test underscore script. What is that? Aggregated, I guess, no? Aggregated, the script name. Huh, level check. Okay, this is my test actually. Let me try to run, and I'll also pass bn hyphen s. Okay, just to get more details. Okay, now let's try to run it and see what happens. Oh, do you see there is some failure? And let me see what is the problem with this basically. Okay, let me just see it. What could be the problem, guys? Let's see. Assertion failed. Customer data. Okay, my test failed. Okay, just a second. Let me see. I think. Okay guys, I think there is a mistake. Okay, so I am just trying to basically do one thing. I'm just trying to print the data frame basically. Okay, so when I just run it, I can see I'm actually not doing the aggregation on the customer level. You see that? This is why I just did print data frame from target and from aggregated. Okay, and then I could see that transaction ID is coming here, and here is customer. So here is a problem basically. So this should be not transaction ID, because I want to aggregate on the customer level, no guys, right? So customer ID. Okay, I think this is the right column. Let's see. Customer ID. This is correct now. Okay, let's try to see whether this time this test case actually passes. Okay, let's try to run it. Perfect guys. Do you see? the test case actually passed, right? Here, one test case passed. And if I can just, okay, if I like, in this case, I just don't want to print it basically. So let it be a little neat. Okay. Now let's try to run it once again and then show you. All right. So you see that test aggregated customer label check. This is a summary table, right? Which is actually passed. So this is how basically you can do the automation. Now it doesn't really matter how much data do you have in your source and in target. It doesn't really matter. It simply compares basically data to uh, based on your requirement, right? So your data is having on this level, but I just want to get the transform the data onto the aggregated level and compare it. Okay, hopefully this really makes sense to you. And if you are like not able to understand this, I would suggest you go back and try to watch this video again and again. Then I'm sure that you will be able to understand. Now you can see that the power of the automation, right? Like this you can actually do any kind of testing, isn't it? But you just need to know how to basically work on write the scripts, basically right amount of right level of scripts, etc., right? So this is what I think I just wanted to bring in this video. And I'm sure that this can basically you can benefit this and you can implement in your project this kind of automation basically. Okay, so yeah, that's all for this video guys. I'll see you soon with another video. Until then, happy learning. God bless you. Bye.